You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I am joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. How are we doing tonight?
We are doing good, buddy. Done with the work week. Now on to the fun. Played some softball tonight with some buddies, and now we get to sit here and talk football heading into week 3 of the NFL schedule. So we're starting to figure a couple things out here, and overall things have been working well.
I like it. And we've got a fun show for y'all tonight. You know, make sure that you throw this one out here early, but we'll hit it up here a couple of different times. If you guys have questions or comments, concerns, whatever, throw them out there. We do love the participation and the comments, all of those kind of good things and we'll answer any questions that you guys throw out there. All of that good stuff as we're breaking down these games and going through some of this stuff. Yeah, if you guys haven't done so, we would appreciate if you guys head over to the YouTube channel, click that subscribe button, ring that bell. We do shows for y'all every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday to help y'all out with your fantasy football. But without further ado, let's go ahead and head on over into the Thursday night games. What were your thoughts on the game last night?
I think that the Texans defense put up a bit more fight in the first half than what I was anticipating. So that was nice to see. I still think Sam Darnold's missing some throws, right? Like he's still missing some big play potential there that I'm sure the Panthers are trying to work on him with of getting off the first and second read and being able to do some different things. But as a Sam Darnold owner and a DJ Moore owner, I'm very pleased with how the beginning of this season has gone. I had a little bit of a freak out there in the fourth quarter when DJ slipped and kind of banged his knee up against the defender when they were down there at the goal line. So I kind of went, holy crap, there for a second. But the fact that he was out playing the next series was a good thing. So, Christian McCaffrey owners, I hope you were listening, and I hoped you grabbed Chuba Hubbard because – yes, they're looking at Duke Johnson. Yes, Royce Freeman saw a couple carries, but this is going to be Chuba Hubbard's time, guys. So you're either going out and you're spending the fab on him, or if you were paying attention, if you're going to draft the best running back in the league for fantasy purposes, you need to have his backup. So hopefully you guys are already set.
Yeah, that one was was kind of devastating there for a lot of folks. And, a lot of kind of things out there where, I saw a lot of questions today of how much fab is too much to spend on Chuba Hubbard. And it plays right into that point that you're making is that, one of the things that is prudent to do is to, especially going into Thursday games, have that handcuff on any of your premium players that you've got out there and you've got rostered and all of that, because should something happen, they're going to skyrocket over the next week or so. So it's always better to be about a week early on the waiver wire than it is to be on time or even a little bit late. So something to keep in mind as you look at those things going forward. But yeah, that game came out there, and I really thought DJ Moore was going to touch 200 yards receiving, especially when that game started getting going, things like that. Like it was definitely a high-powered offense, looked like, with Carolina. And then it also seemed to impact how important Christian McCaffrey really is to the overall team on that one, because that offense seemed to stall out and the whole team just kind of seemed to stall out as soon as that injury occurred. And, wishing him a speedy recovery and hopefully he comes back here real quick and all of that good stuff. But that was one of my big takeaways, was just how much of an impact he has. And really it seemed like on both sides of the ball. And that was one of those two that Carolina's defense looked really good, but again, they suffered a pretty good loss there on that side of the ball as well, with Horn going down. And, again, it was one of those that you started to see that Carolina Panther team that we thought was clicking and going to be really kind of something to contend with maybe in the middle to the back half of this year. And injuries just kind of ate them up all in one game, it seemed like.
It did, but then their next 5 games are fantasy gold. I don't know if they're going to come away 5-0 over the next 5 games, but they have games against Atlanta. They have game against the Giants. I think they play the Cowboys. and a couple others in there. Sorry, I don't have their schedule right in front of me, but overall, don't think it's going to completely, undermine your fantasy season. Yes, losing Christian McCaffrey is a big hurt. I'm guessing he's out 3 weeks. We still don't have a true report on how bad the hamstring strain is. But I'm guessing it's probably going to be 3 weeks. Don't be surprised if they toss him on IR for that short little stint to make roster room for Duke Johnson, if they decide to bring him in and kind of work through that. But overall, if you're a Sam Darnold owner, this is probably a good thing for you in the long run, because he is going to have to drive the ball down the field a bit more. And they're just going to have to find different route concepts, right? They're going to have to get the tight ends more involved. Their run game, their schemes are going to have to change up a little bit. But I think Matt Rule can figure out a way to work through this. Unfortunately, because they had to deal with it last year too. This isn't unfamiliar territory for them.
Yep, that is very true. And on the other side of the, with the Houston Texans, it also seemed like that question I posed on Tuesday is, do we have to worry about Davis Mills being the next single season QB record holder for most touchdown throws, just because of the trend that has happened over the past few years on quarterbacks replacing Tyrod? I think it's safe to say that we don't have to worry about that one, even though we weren't that concerned about that heading into that game. But
he showed some spark though, right? The kid has spunk, and good Lord, is he tough, man. The Panthers, both on both sides, both quarterbacks took massive hits in that game. Davis Mills, especially, I believe it was in the third quarter, where the line kind of collapsed on him. He stepped up to avoid the rush, but one of the Panther players snuck back around and saw, and as soon as Davis Mills stepped up, he got absolutely crushed. So you got to protect him a little bit better, and do a better job for him going forward. Yes, he's a rookie quarterback, but honestly, in the hurry up offense, he looked pretty good. I think it's clear that Brandon Cooks is still the number one A center point. If you were going to have a Houston Texan anywhere on your roster, Brandon Cooks is the guy that you want. He's a target monster right now for him, and I think it's going to stay that way as long as he's healthy. So if you're hurting at wide receiver, he might be a guy that you can get cheaper than other guys in his same production range, just because he's playing for the Texans, and a lot of times he carries a bad stigma with him for whatever reason. So it's definitely an option that you could look at if you need help at receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kevin, let's go ahead and we've got a ton of games to get through, and a really good slate on some of these things here. So let's go ahead and head on over. We'll start looking at Sunday and the early slate of games. We'll also touch through the rest of the Sunday and into Monday, as we always do on this show, and start breaking down some of the games for you, our thoughts on what this might look like. Guys, if you have any questions or comments, things like that about about these games, that kind of stuff, throw those out there in the chat. We love to interact with y'all. We love to get your questions, help you out where we can. I know that we did have a roster question come in earlier today on for a gentleman looking for a little bit of help on who to start. And with that one there, he's got a roster with looks like it's kind of a standard ESPN roster lineup there. And with that, he's got Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, starting Robert Woods, Kenny Golladay, Darren Waller, Kareem Hunt, the Patriots defense, and Gay, the kicker from the Rams, in there as his starters. And then it looks like the bench is Laviska Shenault, Melvin Gordon, James Conner, Jonnu Smith, Cole Beasley, Jamal Williams, and Darnell Mooney. And he's just looking for some roster optimization there. Who would you start, kind of thing. As far as I'm concerned, quarterback check, running backs are both check and check. Any tight end is check there. So really it comes down to any of the wide receivers or flexes for me. Is there anybody else in there that you might throw in there for the flex or the wide receivers?
At first when we were going through it, I was thinking Kenny Golladay, I know he's kind of put up some stinkers, but I do think that he's the best option that they have right now as far as what's left from the roster. So if Kenny G's going to show up, it's going to be against Atlanta, guys. Like he's got to show up. The game's at home. They're going to have the home crowd behind them. Atlanta's pass defense is terrible. We've seen it, as a continuation from last season. And if Kenny G is going to show something, it should be this week. So I would leave the roster as it is, and just kind of set it and check it out, because this is the week that Kenny G should put up numbers that are respectable enough to warrant that wide receiver 2 position.
Yep, I would agree with that as well. The only other thing for me that was a question mark would be the flex spot, and I do like Kareem Hunt there, but Melvin Gordon's also a guy that I wouldn't mind playing in there. That Jets defensive front is a little banged up there. The Broncos seem to have a willingness to want to run the ball a little bit. So matchup wise, I kind of like the matchup that he has there. Plus he's still getting first run in the Broncos offense as far as running backs go. Whereas Kareem Hunt is coming in as kind of that third down back, or to really kind of put that game away in the second half type of thing. So I don't think that you can go wrong either way with Kareem Hunt or Melvin Gordon there. So you go with what your gut tells you on that one, but I do like Kevin's thoughts as far as the roster goes with the wide receiver. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, best of luck. I like the roster construction. Obviously did a good job drafting. A little bit of depth there behind it. I'm not the biggest Shenault fan, but I know some other folks are. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think we'll get into how I think Josh Allen's going to play here in just a second, but I think you're going to be sitting pretty.
Absolutely. And Kevin, perfect segue, because that's where we're heading, is to the Washington football team and the Buffalo Bills. So we're going to start with the game breakdown here for y'all. Buffalo Bills are favored 7.5 on this one. Hold on. I got the graphics. We're going to get this thing going right. Hey, there we go. So the Washington football team going to the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills are favored by 7.5. The over-under on this one, 45.5 points. What are your thoughts on this game here?
I think that there's a lot of questions on both teams defensively. The Washington football team, a lot of people took them as their top defense coming into this season. They haven't quite showed that yet. Buffalo's defense played okay in a losing effort against the Steelers, and then drubbed Miami, obviously. But I think without Tua and until they can really click down there, Miami has a little bit more pain ahead of them. So I do think there's some questions here. I like Washington to cover. I think this is going to be closer than 7.5. I think Taylor Heineke he's a scrappy football player. He just refuses to go away, and I think that helps this Washington football team. They need to get Gibson involved more. We saw what Terry McLaurin did last Thursday night, so they're coming off an extra 3 days worth of rest and film prep. So I think Washington is going to keep this close, and I think we hit the over. I don't know that either one of these defenses is going to hold up to snuff just quite yet, so I'm expecting the over, maybe just barely, but I'm going to take Washington to cover. And I like the over here.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, because the Washington football team is going to score, in the kind of in the low 20s. I see that one there. The Bills seem to have seem to not be clicking near what they were. So I kind of like that. Because I think you'll see both of those teams, probably the Bills scoring in the high 20, the Washington football team scoring in the low 20s. So I think that this is going to be about a 6-point game when it's all said and done. And I think you're going to probably just get that over, because I think you're probably going to see about 46, 47 points scored on this one. So I'll take the Washington football team to cover. I'll take the over. Couple of things of note here, right? And this is one of those things that questions heading into this game for fantasy. Josh Allen has not had that that same kind of epic performance that we saw last year. And right now, the Washington football team is kind of a middle of the road against quarterbacks for scoring from fantasy. Does Josh Allen have a little bit of a get right game here and really get that completion percentage back up from where we saw last year? Like right now, there's the only players out there that there's very few of them. He's got like the fourth worst pass completion percentage out there. So does he have a bounce back game? I could also see Antonio Gibson maybe having a little bit of a rougher start in this one, simply from the standpoint the Bills are top 3 against the run as far as points allowed to the running backs. And I do like Terry McLaurin, though, to do that. I think you'll see Tyler Heinicke still hyper target him to the point where we'll see 10 plus targets there. Any other thoughts, any players that you're looking at, questions going into this one?
I think Allen does start to get right. I don't know that it's going to be, he's going to go out and toss for 3 touchdowns and run for 1 more just yet. And again, not buying into the Buffalo defense. They played against a Pittsburgh team with a terrible offensive line, like terrible. So Najee Harris could not get going, and they jumped out on the Dolphins so fast they had to abandon the run. And so I think that's part of why they look so good against running backs. That defensive line is really tough, guys, but I think they're going to be more focused on Josh Allen than Antonio Gibson or J.D. McKissick. So I do think you'll get to see some production out of them, but Allen starts to look like the QB1 that we drafted him as, and we meaning the fantasy community, right? So I think you could see him finish, inside the top 5 for quarterbacks this week. As far as yards, he'll get a couple touchdowns, and I do think you see him start to connect with Beasley and Diggs a bit more. Emmanuel Sanders and him seem to still be working out some chemistry issues as well, but we will start to see it get better.
Yeah, I think you're right. That was just one of those that, from a guy that was hyper effective and hyper efficient last year to kind of struggling a little bit this year, was an interesting one to keep an eye out on. We do have a question coming in on the YouTube. Ray Gamer is asking a question for the flex position, and this is standard scoring. He has T. Higgins, who's doubtful, and Elijah Mitchell, who's doubtful. Who would you play, CEH versus the Chargers or Tony Pollard versus the Eagles?
Honestly, I think I'd play Tony Pollard at this point. I expect Tony Pollard to continue to get a lot of run. Kareem Hunt for the Bears.
So he also has Kareem Hunt.
Lots of options here.
Yeah. There's a lot of good ones there.
I don't like Corey Davis against Denver. That secondary is for real. Kareem Hunt's not a bad option. As you just got to be patient, right? Kareem Hunt typically gets his usage in the 3rd and 4th quarters. So the first half of the game, you're shaking your head going, why did I listen? Why did I do this? And then the back half of, is kind of when he gets his run typically. I mean, hell, I don't think there's anything wrong with riding the Tony Pollard train here. Like the Cowboys, we saw the recipe for success. And I talked about this on our Tuesday night show, right? Like, yes, Tony Pollard is going to be more involved than I think a lot of us anticipated him to be, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because, yes, it keeps Zeke fresher going through the season. And in one of these divisional games, you need to have wrinkles like this. It's on Monday night. The Cowboys want to put up a show. It's their home opener after being on the road weeks 1 and 2. So I kind of like the Tony Pollard thing. And honestly, I like having a guy on Monday night to root for. Like it's silly, but if I'm ever in a true coin flip, I'll take the guy playing on Monday night just because it gives me a vested interest to watch football and watching my guy go out and have some success to kind of cap off, the cherry on top for the week. Right. So I think Pollard first, I think Hunt second, and then Darius Slayton third. It would kind of be how I rank that. If Slayton would have caught that touchdown last week, I probably tell you Slayton over both of them. But I do think that's going to have some lasting effects. Daniel Jones has been playing really, really well these first couple weeks. I do expect that to continue. because they can't get the ground game going. Saquon's still lagging behind a little bit, trying to get that knee right. So if you want the safe play is Tony Pollard. The kind of advantageous play with some potential higher upside would be Kareem Hunt, just because of how much the Browns are probably going to run this ball against Chicago. And if you're looking for a bang, right, if you need some points to make up, it's probably going to be Slayton, because he has the biggest chance of going, hitting the high ceiling this week against a terrible Atlanta defense.
Yeah, I do like the Pollard. I've got it kind of ranked similar. I've got Pollard, then I've got Kareem Hunt in there. Corey Davis and the going up against that Broncos secondary is out for me. I kind of like that KJ Osborne play right there as well. But if I'm going to have to pick between Slayton and Osborne and ranking those, I've got Slayton ranked above Osborne in my rankings that I've got going for week 3. So that would be the kind of the order that I've got in there, but it's close between Osborne and Slayton for me, between that 3-4.
I think this is going to be a get-right game for Justin Jefferson in their home opener. He's been a little quiet here weeks 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we start to see that. Seattle, their defense isn't out of this world. It's a decent defense, but they're not the Seattle defense of the Legion of Boom era. So I expect that game to be a shootout. Obviously, we'll be covering that here later, but that's why I've been slow with Osborne. Like, yes, they found a guy that they can help fill in and take some of this pressure off of Thielen and Jefferson, but at some point the talent of Justin Jefferson will overcome, and I think we start to see that this week.
Right. And to everybody putting comments and questions in here, I see those coming, and we're going to work through those one by one there. I just wanted to let everybody know that we see those and we are getting to them. So next question coming in, this one coming from Michael on YouTube. Hey guys, I have a trade question. Should I accept it, or how would you change it? That trade is, he gets CMC, but he gives up CEH, James Robinson, and Diggs. He has Derrick Henry as his RB1, and Woods, Marvin Jones, and Cook are my other wide receivers. I guess that's one.
Damn it. So CEH, Robinson, and Diggs for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
I honestly, right now, I don't know that I'd pull the trigger. Like, we think Christian McCaffrey is only going to be down for 3, maybe 4 weeks. It might be a little bit less, but hamstring injuries are really tough on running backs, and Christian McCaffrey uses his legs so well, not only to power through some arm tackles, but just that straight line speed that he has in the receiving game, that it might take him a little bit longer. And once he comes back, how many weeks is he going to be at 80% where the Panthers don't fully engulf him? I mean, it's only week 3. Like, you could justify it if you really, really believe in CMC. But man, giving up Diggs and thinking that him and Allen are going to start getting right. James Robinson and CEH, I would have no problem giving those two up.
Nope.
And that's really what it is. It's CMC for Diggs. He has Jones, Woods, Jones, and Cook. I'd really sit on this. Go ahead, Derek. Share your thoughts. I'm going to make up my mind here.
All right. So for me, I'm not taking it. Running back depth, and that's the other thing that I would be very curious about here, Michael, is the rest of your running back depth, right? Like, I see Derrick Henry there, but if you're getting CMC, right, like, I'm assuming that this is a 2 RBs and a flex in there as well, like most of them. But looking at it that way, right, like, you've got Derrick Henry as your RB1. Who are you going to start as your RB2? And then you also need additional depth in there, because you've got CMC that's going to be on the shelf for probably another 2 to 3 games there as well. And like Kevin said there, hamstrings can linger a little bit, right? I'm not a doctor or anything like that. We don't know the full extent on that, but there is enough there to cause some pause for me on that one. I do like the wide receivers there, and I think I could make it through without Diggs on that one. But But without knowing what that running back depth is, I'm going to sit on this one, and I'm probably going to not take it just because of the concern that I have on the RB depth and how I tend to construct my rosters. I want to have probably 4 or 5 usable running backs on my team at any given point in time. Did you make up your mind on that one?
I made up my mind, and it's not going to help him at all because I think I do it. Okay. I think that you're in a point, maybe you can convince this guy that, look, since CMC is going to be down for a little while and we don't really know what's going on, maybe you can get an extra piece with CMC or not give up, CH or Robinson, some combination of, to kind of help yourself out a little bit with not knowing how long McCaffrey is going to be out. Elijah's just dinged up. He'll come back.
Singletary is another guy that's not one that's going to blow my socks off there.
You can count on Singletary for about 50 yards. Last week with his big long run and the touchdown was kind of a bonus for him. It's not going to be the norm. I think I'd try and modify the trade and use the injury to your oh hell yeah. Shepard and Chase.
You've got the wide receiver depth to handle the digs on that one, that you could rotate that around and really play the matchups on that one. So Tim, after kind of looking at this roster a little bit more, I'm leaning towards taking the deal because this is kind of the ultimate buy low on Christian McCaffrey there. But he's
a different guy.
I'm sorry. I'm getting them confused. All right. Michael, I hope we answered your question. Looks like Kevin's for it. I'm against it. And we'll, you can kind of take our thought processes there and apply them how you see fit for yourself there. All right, more questions coming in here. Hey, y'all, I just got offered a trade. He receives Keenan Allen, Jamar Chase, and Jacoby Myers. I give up Allen Robinson, Pittman, and Rondale Moore. It's a full PPR. The question is, should he take it? I also got more there as well. He's currently flexing Marvin Jones and Shepard. Is Chase higher than either of them for the rest of the season?
I think Chase. Yes, I think Chase is. I think that Sterling Shepard's going to stay a part of this Giants offense as long as he stays healthy. His injury history over the last 3 seasons does concern me slightly, but while he's playing, Daniel Jones does look to him. Put that up again.
Which part of it?
The trade part. I just need to look through it one time. See, I think I do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Pittman's had the one big game. We've seen some. This is now the second injury issue we've seen with Carson Wentz, which scares the crap out of me already. And I was super high on this Colts receiving core coming into the season.
Yes, you were. So was I.
I think I need to take a step back from that. A-Rob, you would think that he's going to get right, but for all intents and purposes, A-Rob and Keenan Allen on
that's
their
a
best,
wash for me. That's
you call him a wash on their best days. So now it's Jamar Chase over Pittman. Yes, absolutely. And Myers and Rondale Moore. The thing about Myers is he's still kind of the number one option there in New England. They don't throw the ball a ton, but he's still the number one guy. So yes, I think you take this trade and you benefit from it ever so slightly.
Yep. And I would do that the same way that you, Keenan Allen, A-Rob, wash for me when it's all said and done this season. Jamar Chase, I think, will have a better back half than what Michael Pittman has there, especially with all of these questions that we continue to have with Carson Wentz there. There's enough of a question mark there for me that I would move off of that for that. And Rondale Moore in that Cardinals offense, even though Cardinals offense is a high-powered deal, and the fact that Kyler Murray is absolutely fantastic. It's one of those that he is way down the pecking order when it comes to getting the ball. DeAndre Hopkins is going to demand a lot of targets, regardless of how AJ Green looks out there. He's still going to demand some targets there as well. And Christian Kirk is going to get run and play time. And when you look at it, you saw Rondale Moore have the big game. You saw Christian Kirk have the big game in week 1. So I think you're going to see these guys kind of rotate in and out there a little bit. And it's going to be a lot of trying to chase points there a little bit more. And I think Jacoby Myers gives you the more stable option there, even though that the ceiling isn't going to be as high, the floor is going to be better. And sometimes when you're looking for depth, that's a better way to do it. So I would take that trade. All righty. Got a few more coming in here. This one is from, I am going to absolutely butcher this one, but Jay Kerchevel. Do I trade Allen Robinson for Saquon? I would not.
No, keep Allen Robinson.
He'd be at my flex.
No,
yeah, I would still pass on that. I'm very well on the record this season saying that Saquon does not look like Saquon of old from a few years back. Moreover, when you look at where Saquon really had fantasy gold, Eli Manning was the quarterback and was checking down to him constantly. And that's not Daniel Jones's game, right? Like we saw week 2, Daniel Jones was RB1 for the Giants. And instead of checking down, he's more than likely to tuck the ball and run. So that I think is going to limit how we need to look at Saquon going forward. But that's just kind of my 2 cents there. All right. Looks like we have one more question coming in from Ray on the YouTube. He's got Kyler Murray, Metcalf, Keenan Allen, Dalvin Cook, David Montgomery. Did you draft in like a 6-team league there? This is a pretty darn good roster rolling through here. Tonyan, Pollard, the kicker is Carlson. And the defense is Denver versus the Jets. I used to have Kelsey, but he traded him for a good QB and Kyler and 2 good wide receivers, which was Keenan Allen and Tonyan. He also gave away Herbert and Jones. So I'm guessing the question is what kind of roster optimization here with that. And I think you've probably got it set already right there.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think you have it set already. Dalvin Cook did participate in practice today. So at the moment, we're going to assume that Cook is playing. And as long as Cook is not ruled out, you have to put him in your starting lineup. Mm-hmm. Like he got drafted, in a single quarterback league, he got drafted 2nd, maybe 3rd overall, just depending on what your league did. So you have to leave him in there. Denver's defense, I like that against the Jets. Yeah, I think you leave it how you have it, and you should be sitting here pretty well because I think Metcalf this is going to be a Metcalf game against the Vikings defense, not a Tyler Lockett game.
Yep, I would agree with that one as well. Kevin, we've got a lot of questions rolling in here tonight, guys. We appreciate y'all throwing all the questions out there. We very much enjoy answering all of these ones. And looks like on that Allen Robinson for Saquon, we got a thank you on it. And Ray Gamer saying that he subbed on the YouTube as well. Ray, we appreciate that. And guys, that's one of the best ways to help support us is subscribing to the YouTube channel. We do the show for y'all 3 times a week during the season, and we go live during the off season once a week as well to help y'all out with Dynasty and help prep for the season as well. Another question coming in. He traded Gronk and Miles Sanders for Mixon and Trey Sermon. Is that a good trade? My team is Dak, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, Darren Waller, Debo, and McLaurin. He got Gronk off the waiver wire. Yeah,
yes. Good job. Good job. Way to make the most out of the waiver wire. I am not a Miles Sanders believer whatsoever. Mixon is, I think, going to continue to be a part of this offense, especially now that T. Higgins is doubtful for this game on Sunday. You're going to see Joe Mixon be in the fold. Gronk off to a hell of a start, but having Waller there, you can't blame anybody. Debo, McLaurin. Yeah, I like this roster. This is a fun roster, right? It's a lot of fun to watch. And obviously Aaron Jones kind of hurt you in week 1, but week 2, holy crap. My other RB is Eckler. Holy crap.
Nope. That was a different one. I got too far ahead of myself. But
okay.
Yeah, my colors on YouTube. I love that roster. It is fun. That one's got to be a lot of fun on Sundays when you tune in and watch, because you got fireworks going off all over the place. So that was a very good trade. I am huge on Mixon this year, but
and if nothing else, you got an RB1 who's not splitting time with anybody, right?
Correct.
Miles Sanders and Trey Sermon are both kind of splitting time. Yes, Sermon, has cleared protocol or on those steps too. I think he's finishing his last steps. Yeah. So he's probably going to get a large part of the run today, with Michael Hasty being already ruled out, and Elijah being doubtful last we heard. So Trey Sermon could get some run here for this week, but once everybody's healthy, the Niners love to just split it up. So Mixon for Gronk, I'm all for it. Good job. I like the trade.
Yep. Big fan of it. All right, we got another one coming in on YouTube. This one from Nitten. Hey, guys, would you trade Carmera for Barkley and Michael Thomas? Hard pass for me as well. He says his other running back is Eckler and Tyson Williams. No, I would keep that roster the way it is. You're banking on MT coming back to being what he was, and we have yet to see what that really looks like between him and Jameis Winston there. And I think Kevin and I are both pretty well on the record that we're not big believers in Barkley this year.
And there's still a rift between Michael Thomas and the Saints organization, right?
Correct.
Like, so if Michael Thomas doesn't feel like 100%, there's a good chance he just milks this out. Like, I just am not believing that Michael Thomas wants to come back and play for the Saints right now, whatever happened, and the recourse that has caused the friction between him and the organization. Take the sure thing. And the sure thing is that Alvin Kamara is still the RB1 there. He had a pretty solid week 1, had a terrible week 2, but all the Saints had a terrible week 2. They will find a way to get this right. Week 3 might be a challenge for you still. So, don't give up after week 3 just yet either, because the Patriots are going to take away Alvin Kamara and force Jameis Winston to throw the ball into windows where interceptions are probably going to be had here. So you have one more week of pain, and then it loosens up a little bit. So don't give up on Alvin Kamara. He is clearly the best and really only consistent option in New Orleans at this time.
Yep. All right, another one coming in from Noah on YouTube. Should I trade Mike Williams for Javonte Williams? And we also got another one that says thoughts on Javonte Williams. So let's just answer both here on the same one. Trade of Mike Williams for Javonte Williams, and thoughts overall on Javonte Williams.
If you have the wide receiver depth and you need the running back, absolutely.
Yep.
Mike Williams is going to be continued. Mike Williams is going to continue to see lots of targets this season. He is playing that Michael Thomas role in the Chargers offense. So we are going to see Mike Williams consistently with, 7, 8, 9 targets each week. And then you just need to see him put it all together, right? We've seen him with double-digit touchdowns before. We've seen him with 1,000-yard seasons before. This is the season where he can put it all together. But Javonte Williams is in an offense where we expect him to take over kind of as that lead back in the back half of the season. He does look a little bit more electric than Melvin Gordon, even though Gordon had the huge run in week 1 to put the game away against the Giants. So if you need the running back help, I feel like this is a good trade for you. If you're doing it just to mess around with your lineup, I would say don't do it, because Michael Thomas will be a more consistent week in and week out factor for your roster than Javonte Williams will be until probably like week 10 or 11.
Yep, I would agree with that as well. So love Javonte Williams over the back half of this year. And that was how we kind of called this one coming into it, that we thought that this was going to be Melvin Gordon's backfield during the first part of the year. He was going to get some run. He was going to get a lot of play early on, but I think that as the season goes along, that timeshare is going to shift towards a Javonte Williams, where he's the primary back on that one. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Javonte Williams towards the back half of the season, and I'm always a fan of getting running backs, especially running backs that I think are going to have a better back half than they have of the front half. Plus, that's kind of how the season typically goes for rookies, right? As the game starts to slow down, as they start adjusting to the NFL speed of the game, they start having bigger and better performances, which again, I think is what we're going to see from Javonte Williams over the back half here. And like Kevin said, if you have the ability to absorb the depth to absorb Mike Williams not on your roster, I make that trade and I don't think twice about it. All right, a couple more coming in here. Noah, who just asked the Mike Williams, Javonte Williams trade, do you think he should try and trade Chris Godwin or Allen Robinson for Javonte Williams, or is Mike Williams is a better deal? Yeah, you need to hold on to Chris Godwin and Allen Robinson for Javonte Williams. You're giving up a little bit too much there for me. I'd probably go with the Mike Williams on that.
Yeah, I'd agree. Keep Godwin and Allen Robinson.
Yep.
Mike Williams is really the key piece there.
Absolutely. Alrighty. So looks like another question out here. Jace on YouTube saying, who's a good person to go get for Miles Sanders and AB?
DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
Comes to mind kind of first. Yeah, I think it's DeAndre Swift type. You might be able to get Joe Mixon for that, maybe, depending on what the owner status is, right? And here's the thing with fantasy football trades, right? It takes two teams to have the trade, and there is a property value associated for players on your roster that people have, right? Like you think because he's on your roster, he's more valuable than what he truly is. So on paper, that I'd sign off on that. I'd if the guy is a big Philly fan, or if his depth is just terrible and you think you can give him a couple pieces and get one better one for yourself, it's worth a shot. But the thing about trades is there's no guarantee. I mean, and I know Derek, you have too, right? Like over our years, we've shot out some really aggressive trade offers, and really overpaid or tried to overpay for guys that we really thought we wanted. And the answer was still no. The other owner didn't want to do it. So it's just part of the game, right? It's the variable of not knowing what the other owner is thinking, unless, you can get him on the phone or you're in a text message with him going, hey, what's wrong with that? So DeAndre Swift comes to mind, maybe Joe Mixon. Outside of that,
David Montgomery wouldn't be a bad one there for that.
David Montgomery may not be a bad one. I'd really like to say Antonio Gibson, but we haven't seen enough from Gibson this first 2 weeks, and
right,
I wouldn't want you to shoot yourself in the foot there.
Right, that'd be a buy low type of thing, and that's if you're believing that Antonio Gibson really has that bounce back in the second half there. So, yeah, no, I like it, and that's you bring up a very good point there, because yeah, it's all in the eye of the beholder with that one. So while we're giving you some names, things like that, there very well could be that you're throwing out a very aggressive offer and the person's just not going to move on that. We've seen that happen time and time and time again.
As much as I'm not a Saquon truther, Saquon's probably a guy that you might be able to go get with that. If you're looking for a guy who's more predominantly featured, as Saquon gets healthier, he is going to be featured more in that Giants offense. So maybe after these first couple weeks, the Saquon owner's not happy, so you might be able to do that. I'll tell you what, though, this week I expect Miles Sanders to have a better week. Like, he plays the Cowboys really well, and the Cowboys are dinged up defensively. So it might be sit on it for one more week, let Miles Sanders have his performance against the Cowboys on Monday Night Television, and then try and move it and see if you have some better luck here, because what Miles Sanders has done in week 1 and 2 hasn't necessarily blown the doors off of anybody.
No, and that's a good point there as well. So, all righty, let's see. I do believe that we've kind of caught up there on some of these questions here. A couple of comments coming in. Tim saying thanks, y'all. My color saying thank y'all so much. Also chimed in saying that he subbed, love the content. We absolutely appreciate that. And guys, if you can hit that subscribe button, that really does help us out. We very much appreciate that. We had AC saying that thanks, fellas, great show. Noah saying thanks, and Jace saying thanks. Again, guys, thank you for throwing all of those questions and comments and letting us walk through that with you. We really appreciate when you guys do that. Kevin, let's go ahead and hit up our head back into the slate of games here. And we've got the Chicago Bears heading to the Cleveland Browns. The Browns favored by 7 points, the over under. And you know what? I got rocking and rolling. I got a video file here. Let's go to the file here. All right. Spread is 7 points for the Bears versus the Browns, over under 45.5 points. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think I'm going to take the over, and I think I'm going to take Chicago to cover. Like, the Browns defense has not been able to put teams away. If it wasn't for Tyrod Taylor's injury, I truly believe that he would have given the Browns everything they wanted and then some. I still think Cleveland wins that game, but I think with Tyrod, it's a hell of a lot closer in the fourth quarter, and we're probably sweating that out a little bit if you're taking the Browns on the money line. So I think I expect that trend to continue. Justin Fields is going to give it his all, right? It's his first career start. I think that Matt Nagy's going to have to take the handcuffs off of him a little bit. We're going to see David Montgomery get a ton of run. I think Allen Robinson sees more than the 4 targets that he saw last week, and he continues to get involved here. So Chicago finds a way to keep this close, and they cover. And maybe we don't. This 45.5, I don't like one way or the other, really. So I'd probably stay away from the bet. For the sake of the show, I'm going to flip-flop. I'm going to say the under, and Chicago covers. Low-scoring affair here. Lots of running.
Yeah, I see this one as being pretty close to about a push on the spread on that one, but I'm going to say the Browns cover. I'm going to say that they cover that, and I'll take the. Well, you know what? We're gonna say that Odell decides to play in this one. He comes back, has a good game, and the Browns cover, and that we'll take the over. So I'll go opposite of you. I'll take the over and the cover. Really the Browns have given up a ton of points to the opposing quarterback. They're one of the best teams to play in fantasy as far as an opposing defense for a quarterback. Not the case on running backs or wide receivers, but they have given up a ton of points to the quarterbacks. Now, Patrick Mahomes and that performance there kind of skewing that a little bit there in week 1 with how he put up that back half. But Justin Fields could be a sneaky DFS type of play like that. That could be a fun little deal to look at this weekend. All righty, let's go ahead and you have some other thoughts on that one?
No, I think your assessment's sound. I will be interested to see how much Fields is let off the leash.
Right.
And if we can truly see that he is the better quarterback than Andy Dalton, because that's been the argument, right? People in Chicago wanted to see Justin Fields. He got in last week and he didn't look that great, honestly. So we're going to see how much he learned in a week and how he can show up and show out here against this Browns defense.
Right. All righty, next game up, we got Baltimore Ravens heading to the Detroit Lions. Baltimore favored by 8, the over-under on this one, 50. What are your thoughts on this one?
I like the Lions to cover here. Like the Ravens are riddled with injuries, guys. Like Laramie Tunsil, their starting left tackle, out. They're down 2 defensive backs. Obviously, their third string running back, as well as Tyson Williams, has played. Lamar's going to have to do a ton. And I think Jared Goff, we've seen they're going to continue to toss up the ball. The Detroit Lions have should have been able to study what worked really well for Darren Waller and Travis Kelce in weeks 1 and 2 and kind of implement all of that. Because the Ravens have had the gauntlet of tight ends here to start the season. So I expect Hawkinson to be highly involved still. We're going to see if Cephas can kind of continue his success from Monday night. Amon-Ra St. Brown is starting to get some run there. And you still have to deal with Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift coming out of the backfield. So the Lions are scrappy. They're going to bite your kneecaps, right? That's what Dan Campbell said. And this is going to be a get-right game. This game is going to be closer than the 8 points. I don't think that the Ravens are going to be able to keep this out of reach.
Yeah, that over-under, they set that pretty aggressive there because I think that you'll see a little bit of a track meet when it's all said and done, right? When you look at it, the Lions are awful at giving up points to opposing running backs. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Aaron Jones just uncorked on them last week. But still being the case that Baltimore's strength lies in their run game, and that's how they're going to do it. So regardless whether it's Lamar running the ball or it's one of the, the multi-headed, facet of running backs back there running the ball, Baltimore is going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball successfully. They're going to put up points and move the ball on the ground. But the flip side of that, Baltimore has given up the most points to tight ends so far. So again, I think Hawkinson's in for a big day. So this is going to be one of those that so far how we've seen these offenses perform so far, like it's kind of they get to play to their strengths on each side of the ball there. And so this could be an interesting game to watch. And Detroit, they've got those players believing in what they're trying to do. So I'll take that, and I'll take the cover. I do like the over on this one though. Let's go ahead and head on over to our next matchup there. And we've got the Colts. Indianapolis Colts are heading to Tennessee. Tennessee's favored by 5.5. The over under is 48 on this one. What are your thoughts?
I think that even if Carson Wentz plays, he's going to be hobbled at best. Man, if he doesn't play, this is definitely Tennessee in the under. Definitely. Even if Carson Wentz does play, the Colts might cover if Carson Wentz plays, right? But I still think it's the under either way. Like, I just don't see how the Colts generate enough offense with a hobbled Carson Wentz or a backup quarterback coming in, and whether it's Brett Hundley or Jacob Eason, right? Both of them had reps with the first team this week. And so I just don't see how Indianapolis puts up enough points to touch 50 or, 49 to hit the over. So I'm going to say it's the under, and I'm going to say Tennessee covers. I think they kind of found some things with Derrick Henry hitting his stride last week, and they're going to be able to capitalize on the Colts' injury woes here to start the season.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. If Carson plays, I do like Michael Pittman in this matchup. If he doesn't, I'm out on pretty much all Colts pass catchers. And I think you're right. I think Tennessee really kind of got that reminder.
Play Pascal in DFS. He'll find a way to catch another freaking touchdown.
No, that's true. Yes. Zach Pascal, here we come. And this one being a divisional matchup, they typically play those games a little bit closer, a little bit tighter there. So I'm going to take the under on this one. I do like Tennessee to cover, but I do think the Colts will ultimately win this one. And again, I don't necessarily see this being the game that we see Ryan Tannehill kind of getting off of that funk that he's been in early this season. So I think we'll probably see that continue there. So pretty interesting matchup, though. Interesting divisional game. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have Tannehill bouncing back a bit more than you do in this one. Mm-hmm. But a lot of that's going to be how well can he use his legs, right? Because part of what Tannehill did so well last year was, even though Henry was so dominant, the Tennessee Titans moved the ball, got into the end zone, and Ryan Tannehill was able to score a couple touchdowns with his legs. They really just need A.J. Brown to get healthy and to be the guy that everyone drafted him as on their fantasy team. So The dropsies need to stop. He needs to focus on catching the ball. And if he does that, I think that'll immediately help Tannehill, obviously, right? Because there's been a couple of these where his adjusted completion percentage is still in the top 5, right? So it's not his fault that A.J. Brown decides not to catch the freaking ball, but it is hurting his relevance. Tannehill might start to show his more accurate form here starting this week as they bounce back and start to get right in the receiving room.
Yep. Yeah, I could see that one. But yeah, I've got Tannehill probably right there around QB 15, 16 this week heading into this matchup, where better than what he's been, but it's still not where you necessarily drafted him to play at. So let's we've got another question coming in here. Let's go ahead and hit that one up before we head to the next one. Start Miles Sanders or David Montgomery. That's a smash. Go ahead on this one. I'm now thinking my thought.
I think this is pretty close to a coin flip because I do think Miles Sanders is going to have a good game Monday night. I think David Montgomery has a safer floor. Kind of what his usage is going to be. I think Justin Fields actually helps David Montgomery if Fields starts to find his rhythm and move around a little bit, because it will bring more attention to him and less on Montgomery. And I'm not convinced that the Cleveland run defense is as good as we think it is. They've just played two teams who don't want to run the football. So coin flip, I'd probably go Montgomery personally, because I'd rather have the sure thing, even though I think Miles Sanders is going to have a good Monday night. If you are a big underdog in your matchup this week and you feel like you need points and you need some guys to pop and really show out to squeak a win, then I think Miles Sanders is the call. He has a higher ceiling this week, but David Montgomery is definitely going to be much more consistent and predictable in his output.
Yeah. For me, it was one of those that immediately looking at this, it was, nope, that's got to be David Montgomery. Don't think about it. And then, thinking about it a little bit, realizing that Miles Sanders gets that Dallas defense. Dallas is banged up there. And he could have a big game, but the fact is that Kenneth Gainwell is going to continue to be a problem for Miles Sanders going forward on this one. And David Montgomery really has the bulk of that work. And I'm going to take the David Montgomery there. And he just says he just needs one of those guys to outscore Kenyon Drake. Well, very well could be Kenyon Drake still playing, back up to Peyton Barber this week. So that could be an interesting deal there. But yeah, I would still play David Montgomery. When it's all said and done. Peng's Picks. Pengs, welcome in to the show. Appreciate the comment. It is Ryan Manahill is his real name, is what he's saying there. So appreciate that one. All righty. So we have another divisional matchup here taking place, and this one should be really, really interesting. The Chargers are heading to Arrowhead playing the Chiefs. Kansas City's favored by 6.5 points. The over-under is 54.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm a little frustrated with NBC that they chose the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the LA Rams, or the LA Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs for the Sunday night game. Like, there's a lot of good games on this slate, like you said, Derek, but holy crap, it makes me frustrated with NBC because I want all these games to be on prime time, but it's not going to happen that way. So back to the game. Sorry, my rant is over. I think the Chargers are going to give Kansas City a hell of a lot more of a fit than people think. Kansas City's defense has been atrocious. Opportunistic at times, sure. But throughout the course of a game, not very good. I don't think that Kansas City is going to come out with a vengeance like a lot of folks are saying just because they lost that game against Baltimore. And I think the Chargers are trying to make a statement here, right? They're trying to say that they're here to stay. They're trying to say that, hey, your reign as AFC West champions is over. And they have the defense to at least cause some issues for Patrick Mahomes. They're not going to be a cupcake. And Justin Herbert, along with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Austin Eckler, they have enough weapons to really play havoc on this defense. Also, I like the over. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. We're going to see, a lot of scoring in this game. It could be, 30-27, something like that by the time it's done and over with. Even though that line is begging for you to take the under, I'm not gonna fall for it. I'm taking the over, and I think the Chargers cover. Like I think this is a 3-point game. I don't feel like Kansas City's gonna win it by a touchdown.
Yeah. I sat there and I was looking at this one back and forth, and I had the realization that there's a good chance. There's a really, really good, legitimate chance that 3 weeks in, Kansas City's 2 games back in the division. Like there's a really good chance that Kansas City loses this game. The Broncos have a good matchup. The Jets have a good matchup. And you could see the Kansas City Chiefs 3 weeks into the season being the cellar dwellers in the AFC West, which nobody would have predicted that coming into the season here.
As a Bronco fan, nothing would make me happier.
I understand. But yes, I think you're right. When you look at it, the Chiefs are 0-2 against the spread this year. So I think this game is going to be closer than the 6.5 here. And I think that this thing's going to play out one of two ways. If this thing turns into a track meet, that's where it's going to favor Kansas City. And so the higher the score goes, I think that the balance tilts towards Kansas City. If it's a little bit lower scoring game, I think the LA Chargers are going to be better suited to pull out a victory in this one. So I think that you're probably going to see a game where it's going to be probably, what is that? Probably 27-21 or 27-24 is probably how I see that one finishing out there. So I'm going to take the under, and that under I think is going to end up favoring the Chargers. So I think the Chargers are actually going to win outright here, but could be very interesting. There's going to be a lot of points scored, a lot of back and forth gone there, but I think the Chargers have just enough of the defensive pieces here to slow this thing down to keep the Chiefs under that 30-point mark, which is where they become very beatable at that point. Alrighty. Any other thoughts on this one?
Only that I kind of feel the opposite. I feel like the higher the score goes, the more I like the Chargers, only because I trust their defense to make a stop more than I trust Kansas City's at this point.
Fair enough. Another question coming in. This one coming from Streak. Do I trade Corey Davis for Chase Claypool?
Ooh.
That's a tough one there.
That is a tough. I think that's a coin flip in what you're looking for with your roster. I think Corey Davis is still, we knew he was going to have a tough week against New England. He's going to have another tough week against Denver. And after that, the Corey Davis show might be back on here. Like, we just got to get Zach Wilson through his lumps. At the moment, Ben Roethlisberger with the pec injury, like, it almost just seems like this is his swan song. Like, Roethlisberger just does not look very good at all through the first couple weeks. I think I'm keeping Corey Davis at this point. I want to see what him and Zach Wilson can do, because Claypool or Waddle. No, Waddle doesn't do it for me either because the Tua injury and everything else. I think I'm keeping Corey Davis at this point. I want to see what he can do with Zach Wilson.
Well, I think for me, I think it's going to depend a little bit on your roster construct and what you're looking for. I think Corey Davis will have once we get past a couple of these harder games, I think he'll have the safer floor when it's all said and done. Chase Claypool is going to be a boom bust kind of guy. Like, he will have the higher ceiling on any given individual week, but I think Corey Davis will have the safer floor. And when you look at it, both of these guys are, when they're on the field, they tend to be heavily targeted by their quarterbacks. So I like the Corey Davis side because I tend to like more consistent play there.
So after this game against the Broncos, Corey Davis has the Falcons, they have the Bengals, and they have the Titans, who have not been, their safety plays awful, right? So you get past this game, and the next three are looking pretty cush for Corey Davis, and then being able to kind of get right. So I think that's another reason, just looking at the immediate schedule. I'd suffer through one more rough week with Corey Davis, enjoy the next 3, and then possibly look to flip them after they've got through kind of the easier part of their schedule. Then they have the Pats again. But they still have games against the Dolphins, the Texans, the Jaguars. Like, they have a lot of games that favor the pass here. So I still think I'm keeping Corey Davis on my roster. I have him on my home team roster, and I'm not looking to move him unless I get kind of blown out of the water, even though he's the 4th receiver on my team.
Right. Yeah. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and head on over to our next matchup here. The Saints heading to New England. New England favored by 3. The over-under is 42. What are your thoughts on this one?
I like the under, and I like the push. Like, I think New England wins by 3. So, I'm calling the push right now, and I like the Patriots in an underperformance. I think the Saints are going to try and rekindle the defensive magic that they had in week 1 against Green Bay, and really stymie the rookie quarterback from the Patriots and Mac Jones. And I think Bill Belichick has a game plan for Alvin Kamara and Jameis Winston, and the Saints aren't going to be able to put up many points at all. So I'm seeing a pretty low-scoring affair here. It might be 20-17. It might be 17-10. Something like that. But it's definitely the under for me. And because neither team can move the ball, I think the Patriots win by a field goal. So push.
Yep. Yeah, you make too much sense to not subscribe to that one. And so I'm going to. I like the under. I like the push. I think New England wins this thing, but it is going to be a very tight game, and it's going to be if you like defense, it'll be a fun game to watch. But if you want to see offense, this is probably not the game on the slate that you really want to tune into.
No. If you want to see offensive football, this game's going to be boring as crap, especially compared to some of the other games we have on the slate here. So it's, the game's at 1 p.m. So I'm going to be watching the Chiefs and Chargers. And realistically, I'm going to be scoreboard watching both of them because I'll be at the Broncos game.
There we go. All righty. We've got the Atlanta Falcons going to the Giants. Giants favored by 3, over unders 47.5. What are your thoughts here?
One team will not be defeated by the time this game ends, right? That's what I got here. Honestly, I think the over is extremely likely here. Like, I could see this game being a shootout. The way Daniel Jones has been playing, them being at home, I do think gives them an edge. Another 3-point game here. I'm going to say, I'm going to tell you that the Giants cover, only because I think continuing to guess push is kind of boring for the show. So I'm going to say that the Giants cover, and we're going to hit the over in this one. We're going to see some, third and fourth quarter fireworks and a little bit of a back and forth game with no defense.
Yep, you're probably right. You know what? I'm going to say that the Giants cover. I'm going to say the Giants win by like 4 points, 5 points type of thing. I think that this one will be, again, this is going to be a garbage, for fantasy, this is going to be garbage time gold when it's all said and done. There will be a lot of points put up in the third and fourth quarter on this one, with teams trying to basically turn it into a track meet when it's all said and done. But I'm still not buying into the Saquon get right game that everybody's predicting playing against the Falcons there. So that's one that if I've got him, I'm still looking to try and move him to another roster. So yeah, I'm not predicting big things for Saquon in this one. Any other thoughts? Do you see any of the Falcons kind of getting right here? Anything like that?
I think Pitts finds the end zone for the first time this week against the Giants. I think Calvin Ridley, you'll see a solid game out of him again. It'll be interesting to see what the Falcons do in the backfield with Mike Davis and Cordero Patterson. They're talking 60-40 split. We'll see how well that holds up, but I'm definitely starting all my Giants pass catchers. I'll start Kenny G in my flex. Really any of them in my flex. Kenny G might have to be a wide receiver 2 option this week for you. There are many worse options than to try and, subscribe to the fact that he's just going to play terribly against the Falcons. I just think that this is an opportunity for him to get right. So I'm starting Shepard. I'm starting Slayton in the flex spot. I'm starting Galladay, and I'm starting Daniel Jones. I think that this continues, and Daniel Jones has very sneaky, top 5 quarterback upside because of this game.
Yeah. Well, he is RB1 for the Giants. So there's always the possibility that he has and really with that rushing, it gives him a safe floor. And there's always a possibility that he connects on a couple of those deep passes, which he's fairly proficient at, and puts up some pretty dynamic points there.
As long as Slayton catches them.
Right. That's very true. But I was looking through that Daniel Jones for fantasy is actually a top 10 quarterback right now. So we'll see if that continues. So if you got him, play him. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and head over to our next game. It's Bengals, Steelers. Steelers favored by 3. The over-under is 43.5. What are your thoughts here?
I shouldn't say boring. This is going to be another defensive battle. Like, I don't think the Steelers are going to move the ball very well. And I think the Steelers defense realizes that, and they're going to come and show out. And these games with the Bengals and Steelers are always very contested. They're always very emotionally driven. So the Steelers at home by 3. I think the Steelers, because of their pedigree, find a way to win this game. But I'm going to tell you that, man, here's a ballsy line. I'm going to tell you the Bengals cover. Ooh. We're going to have a 1-point game here at the very end. It's going to be a low scoring affair. The under just screams take me. Like, it's just not a fun game to bet.
No, it's not. And both teams have actually stacked up fairly decent against opposing teams that give it up points for fantasy to it. The Steelers offense hasn't looked overly great this whole season. So we'll see if they can get something going with their run game and their pass game. See what's going on with the Bengals on the other side of the ball. But I think you're right. I think this is going to be a very closely contested defensive slugfest. And it's going to be another game that, it's not going to surprise me when this thing ends 23 to 20 type of thing. So I'm going to take the over just to be contrarian, because I think it'll be a 4-point game. And then
you can find a way for the over to hit in this game pretty easily, though, right? Like, it's not, I don't think you're way out of line to think that 40. And you can see the big playability, right? If Claypool or Juju get loose and break one to the house, that obviously helps that. And the same thing, no T. Higgins, but what it does is, for fantasy purposes, it gives a much safer floor to Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase owners. And Joe Mixon is going to continue to be involved to not put so much pressure on Joe Burrow.
Yep. So I'm going to take Pittsburgh to cover the over on that one. But just barely on both accounts. Another comment coming in here. I'm gonna butcher that, but Vopsy says, "Yo, what's up?" and has the question of Tonyan or Cook at tight end.
I'm going to take. You're going with Tonyan?
I'm taking Tonyan.
Okay, I'll be contrarian, and I'm going to make it difficult. I'm going to go Cook, because I think that the Kansas City defense is much worse than the San Francisco defense. And I think that this Green Bay San Francisco game is going to be a little bit lower scoring than a lot of people are anticipating.
Right now I saw a stat out there that Green Bay, in their time going against the Niners-led Shanahan 49ers teams, have a hard time putting up over about 25 points when it's all said and done. But that being the case, Robert Tonyan's at least somewhat looked to when they get down there in the red zone. And both of these guys are touchdown dependent tight ends. I'll take the guy that tends to be more efficient at doing it with Robert Tonyan over Jared Cook. But it's really going to come down to which one falls into the end zone. And then that being the case, it really depends on which way you see this thing shaken out. Do you see Robert Tonyan, who's going to be the third target for Aaron Rodgers when they get inside the red zone? Or are you looking for it to be Jared Cook, who is the fourth target in most cases down there in the red zone behind Allen, Williams, and Eckler. So I'll take the guy that has a little bit higher shot of falling into the end zone, I think. Alrighty, next game up. We'll head over to Arizona, going to Jacksonville, 7.5 for the Cards, and the over-under 52. What are your thoughts here?
Here's a fun stat for you. The Jacksonville Jaguars have had exactly one snap inside the red zone this season.
Okay.
It's hard to get to a 52 total when you only have one snap inside the red zone. Now, I like the Cardinals, and I like the Cardinals to cover, but I don't think you're going to see as much of this coming from the Jacksonville side. So you could see something that's, 35-17, something like that. And you're still not hitting the over. So it's one of those things where I'm going to take the Cardinals to cover this. I'm going to take the under because I do not believe that Jacksonville has solved the issues to their offensive woes just yet. They have no idea what they're doing at running back. Between Carlos Hyde and James Robinson, Trevor Lawrence is definitely looking like a rookie quarterback at the moment, trying to figure out where he can go, who he can trust to do different things. So, and there's only going to be like 30,000 people at this Jaguars game because no one goes to Jacksonville to watch a football game. No home crowd advantage. I'm taking Arizona.
Yeah, I like Arizona. I like them to cover. Jacksonville's 0-2 against the spread right now. And, man, it's one of those that you really want to, looking at that, you kind of want to take the over because there's a chance that you can see Arizona easily put up 40 points in this one. At least I can see that Arizona offense hanging 40 points on 42 points on the Jaguars. The problem is I don't know that I trust the Jaguars to even put up 10 points. And it's one of those two that in the second half, if the Cardinals are up by that much, do they really continue to put the gas pedal down? Do they keep some of their big time playmakers in, or do they give some of these younger guys like Rondell Moore a little bit more run, things like that? So at that point, I'm going to take the under. I do like the Cards to cover.
And with Hopkins being questionable, he's going to be the first guy they pull, right? If this game gets out of reach, Hopkins is going to be a guy, look, come sit down. We'll let AJ Green get some run. We'll have Christian Kirk see what he can do. We'll get Rondell Moore involved, all the different things, right? You might even see an Andy Isabella sighting this week. But if the Cardinals can jump out on this, they're going to sit Nuke because they want him to be fresh and they want to keep him around as long as possible. And having him take unnecessary wear and tear in a game that you should just drum your opponent is not a way to do that. So all that is why I'm thinking under.
Yeah. All right. Another question coming in. Hector on YouTube asking LaVisca, Fuller, Osborne, and Ayuk play 2. Ayuk is immediately out for me on that one. Man. I'm never a big fan of playing a guy coming in off of his first game back, but with that, I'm probably going to go LaVisca and Fuller, but I'm not super excited about it.
Yeah, I'm not. Green Bay covers the pass very well. So between Debo and Ayuk both, I'm not very high on them this week against Green Bay. Osborne for the Vikings. I just think that this is going to be a game where you see Jefferson kind of take over and show his appearance for fantasy. This is the week last year where he broke out, right? It was week 3 or 4 last season where he came onto the scene after a slow start. I'm kind of predicting a similar thing. So Osborne, I don't want the third option there. So yeah, Fuller and LaVisca. Yeah, begrudgingly. I don't love LaVisca. I like Fuller better. I think they're going to have to take some shots down the field to stay in the game against Oakland.
Yep. I'm just not that big a fan either of the fact that Tua's not there, and you're going to have Jacoby Brissett having to throw the ball there as well. So there's a myriad of things that don't make me excited to play Will Fuller this week. But yeah, out of those options, I'm going LaVisca and Fuller as well. All righty, let's go ahead. And now we're getting into the afternoon slate of games here. And we've got the Jets coming to the Broncos. Broncos playing at home for the first time this year, have a 10-point spread to cover and 41.5 points on this one. Where are your thoughts on this one?
That's a really big spread for a really light total.
Correct.
Now, we saw that Zach Wilson definitely has some learning to do, right? Bill Belichick exposed a lot of different things. Their run game is suspect at best. The Broncos' strength is in their secondary. It's their home opener. Man, 10 points is a lot for that Broncos team to cover, but I do think they find a way to do it. Like I could see a 13-point victory, something like that. But in order for the Broncos to cover, I think it has to hit the over at some point. Like the Jets are probably good for 10 to 13 points. I think this for the Broncos. I'm going to say the over and the Broncos cover.
It's also interesting too, because when you look at it, the Jets are 0-2 against the spread. The Broncos are 2-0 against the spread. So I see that continuing there. And when this thing's all said and done, I think you're probably going to see this game be 24-27 with the Broncos putting up 24-27 points, and the Jets. I think I'm going to take the under on this one. Reason being is I think that you're going to see a 27-14 game when it's all said and done, which puts it right at 41 points. And that's that half point's going to keep me under. So that's, I'm not excited about that one, but that's where I see that one playing out there. So, yeah, that's the other thing too. There is right. Like when you're on the Jets side of the ball, I'm not looking to play any of those guys for fantasy this week. If I can pivot off of my Jets players, I probably am. The pass catchers, nope. Zach Wilson, nope. The Broncos, if I've got Melvin Gordon, I've got Javonte Williams, I'm absolutely playing that. I'm absolutely playing Cortland Sutton, who looked like a beast last week. And that's kind of where, and Noah Fant as well. I
like Tim Patrick in this game, right?
Yeah,
I think Sutton drew enough attention to himself that I think Tim Patrick will find a way to probably fall into the end zone this week again, with so much attention being drawn over towards Sutton. So he's a kind of a sneaky flex play if you're really strapped for receivers and you're not loving what you have as far as matchups. Tim Patrick's an option that you could look at.
Yeah. And I do see the Denver just grounding and pounding this one a little bit more so than they did last week. The Jets have not been good against the run. So I see both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams getting a ton of run this week and really doing some big things. So if you've got either one of those two, play them and put them in there. Next game up, we've got the Dolphins, the Raiders. Vegas favored by 4. Over under is 45. What are your thoughts here?
I think Darren Waller is going to eat this game. I think the Dolphins are going to struggle to move the ball. This Raiders defense has been getting after the quarterback and just causing disruptions. We saw it with Lamar Jackson. Then we saw it again last week in a game that a lot of people thought the Steelers, after beating the Bills in week 1, were going to kind of give it to the Raiders, and they went across two time zones and proved everybody wrong. So I think the Raiders come home and they put up a hell of a performance for their home crowd here. So Raiders cover. I'm going to take the under in this one just because the Raiders aren't a team that's going to light the scoreboard up, and I don't think the Dolphins are going to do much besides punt the ball from time to time.
Yes. I don't know that I have anything to add there, other than the fact of keep an eye out on the Raiders running back situation. If you've got any of those guys rostered for fantasy there, a guy that I am looking to see how this looks is going to be Bryan Edwards for the Raiders as well. Just see what he can do and see what if that breakout kind of continues that we saw a couple weeks ago. Dolphins, I'm not necessarily excited to play any of these. Dolphins, maybe Myles Gaskin, just because the Raiders tend to give up a lot of points towards the running backs. They're bottom half running back points allowed. But yeah, I'm not looking forward to really playing any of those Dolphins with Tua out and Will Fuller now being added to the mix on that one.
They're definitely going to take a couple deep shots with Fuller. I mean, I think that's kind of a given. They need the safeties to stay back to give Gaskin any sort of running room, which also will help Jalen Waddle have some room to create after the catch. So Miami has to take shots down the field to keep the defense honest. Otherwise, this is going to get pretty ugly pretty quick.
Yep. Another question coming in from the YouTube. Hector on YouTube says, stash Bateman or Samuel in IR. He has just one IR spot. I don't know. I'm probably go ahead.
I'm probably going to say Samuel just because I trust that Washington's going to throw the ball a little bit more. And there's not really another option outside of McLaurin and Logan Thomas. The Ravens love to run the football, and they've kind of done a pretty good job spreading it around, right? Andrews sees a couple, Sammy Watkins is seeing a couple, Hollywood Brown's seeing a couple, and they sprinkle in a running back once or twice a game, but they just don't throw it a ton. So stashing Bateman, I don't think does anything for your roster. Stashing Samuel gives you a realistic flex option later on in the season if you were to incur other injuries on your team.
Yep. Again, when we talk about rookies, typically it's the second half that we see these rookies start to kind of break out there. It's not usual for them to break out early in the season. So that being the case, Rashad Bateman had a shortened preseason due to some injury there. Still working on some chemistry with Lamar Jackson. And I'm going to take the pro in that case, the season pro in Curtis Samuel, who I think when he comes back from this one, you're going to see the Washington football team dial up plays to get him involved and put the ball in his hands far more than what you'll see the Ravens do for Bateman. I do like Bateman long-term though. If you're looking dynasty, something like that. But if you're talking the way that your question is, that is got to be a redraft. All right, Kevin, let's go ahead and head on over to our next game on the slate here. And that's one that I'm interested to see. The Bucs and the Rams. Tampa Bay, 1.5 point favorite, over under 55 on this one. What are your thoughts here?
I expect the Rams to do a lot of what the Cowboys did. Just because they have the receiving group to do it between Van Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of running from the LA Rams in this game. So Matt Stafford is a good play this week, obviously. And Tampa Bay is just Tampa Bay, man. I don't see a reason why Tom Brady will stop throwing the ball as long as Tampa Bay's offensive line can hold up, because the one way to get to Brady is right up the middle. And you have a big all-pro defensive tackle in Aaron Donald, who's going to try and disrupt this game. So if Leonard Fournette, who has been getting most of the run, as well as Giovanni Bernard, pass blocking wise, as long as they can help pick up and protect Tom Brady, I think we're going to see a high scoring affair. I think this game can absolutely touch the over fairly quickly. honestly, with the issues that Tampa Bay has in their secondary. So I'm going to take the over, and I'm not betting against Tom Brady. I don't know that the Rams are there just yet.
Yeah, that one they set that line where it's almost where you want to take the home team, it being a home team, things like that. But yeah, it is really tough to go against Tom Brady and what we've seen him do week in, week out so far on this season. And typically when you look at most of the teams, when they go up against the Rams, they're not near as well suited to play this defense as what the Buccaneers are, right? Like you look at it, most teams, they have one go-to wide receiver, and then they've got some other pieces that they can go to in and around. But Jalen Ramsey, is a guy that they can maneuver all over the field and play their toughest receiver to slow them down. Well, Tampa Bay's got three guys that, pick your poison type of thing, and just let them know who you want Tom to throw the ball to all day long. Antonio Brown being out of this one. So you could see another big game from Gronk. Because
Yes.
that's where a lot of times you'll see Jalen Ramsey move to a tight end playing there, because he's big enough and physical enough that he can slow down some of those dominant tight ends. But if you do that, now you've got Mike Evans on the outside, which again is another big body type of wide receiver. I think that's where you'll see Ramsey kind of shadow over more so throughout this game. So I'm seeing a big game coming from Chris Godwin, and seeing the Tom Brady, Chris Godwin connection to the point where I think Godwin will easily see see double-digit targets in this one and have a pretty darn good game. So, yeah, give me the Bucks and give me the over.
Yeah, I don't know that Tom even, and not that he can't get past Jalen Ramsey, but why push it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's one Jalen Ramsey, and he has three really good options between the guys you just listed. So I think I'd be surprised if Tom Brady win at Jalen Ramsey more than 5 times in this game.
Right.
As much as Jalen Ramsey's been moving around, like, okay, well, here's the game plan. Wherever he's at, if it's a play that we don't like the matchup there, we're just going to audible into something else, change the route combinations, and keep it away from Jalen Ramsey and force the other defensive backs to make plays in this game. Don't let Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald beat you. You have to pick up, the inside blitz, so that way Tom Brady has time, and you have to, find the receiver with the more favorable matchup, which Tom Brady can absolutely do.
Yep. And again, that's part of the reason that I see Godwin having that big day there, is the fact that you'll see Tom getting the ball out quick, which I think is going to end up favoring either Gronk or Chris Godwin there. And I think that you'll see Chris Godwin feed a little bit more, because I have a feeling that they'll probably shadow Jalen Ramsey over either Gronk or Mike Evans more so in this game. Let's head on over to the Seahawks and the Vikings. The Seahawks favored by 1.5, over under 55.5 in this one.
This is kind of a sneaky one as far as the game total goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we are going to see a lot of passing in this game. Dalvin Cook is a little dinged up, right? And if he's healthy, you expect Minnesota to use him and try and at least have a presence in the ground game. But realistically, I expect DK and Justin Jefferson to both have monster games. I think Courtland Sutton. I think Kirk Cousins is going to finish in the top 12 of quarterbacks this week. Obviously, Russ is going to do Russ type things. This game absolutely screams shootout after what we've seen from both these defenses in the first couple weeks. So I think the over's safe. I have Minnesota winning. They're going to win their home opener. So Minnesota covering the 1.5. I'm taking the over. And I think this is going to be a big time passing game between Lockett, DK, and Russ, and Thielen, Jefferson, and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is going to be a track meet, but I see it playing out a little bit the other way, because I think this one's going to come down to whoever has the ball last. And quite frankly, I trust Russell Wilson a little bit more so to put that thing away when it's all said and done there. So I'm going to take Seattle on this one. I do like the track meet, do like the over on this one. And I think that you're just going to see a point bonanza when this thing's all said and done. And if you have players in this, play them, right? And really what I mean by that is I'm going to be iffy on Osborne. That's one that we've seen come up quite a few times in here on the feed tonight. While Osborne has done well so far this fantasy season, I think this is where, right, like you've said this multiple times this week and tonight, this is a get right game for Justin Jefferson. I think you see him get back to where we saw him play last year. And I think this is also a get right game for DK Metcalf, where he's going to be the guy that puts up the big yardage for Seattle and not a Tyler Lockett week there. So I think that this is going to be a battle of the wide receiver ones, and you're going to see Kurt and Rush just kind of duel this thing out. Let's go ahead and head on over into the Sunday night game. Sunday night game, Green Bay, San Francisco. San Francisco favored by 3.5. Over under is 49.5.
I think I like the under, and I think I like San Francisco in this one. Like, Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers, and the Green Bay Packers need to show me that they can go on the road and play a big-time team and not get the doors beat off of them before I'm willing to take the Packers in this situation. So the Niners have had a pretty decent game plan against Rodgers in years past. They have the athletes to cover in the flat against the running backs that they deploy. They're going to worry about Javonte Adams, and that's about it. So they're going to force Tanyan, Randall Cobb, MSV, all those guys to beat them and not get beat by the stars. And Green Bay's rushing defense is Swiss cheese. So yes, you are going to see Trey Sermon get some usage. It's going to be interesting to see who they kind of deploy behind him to spell him and do different things. But I think San Francisco's offensive line can get enough push that you will see Sermon have a pretty good day against this Packers team. And I think the Niners end up coming away with the victory at home.
Yep. I like what you just said there. I'm going to subscribe right behind you. But question for you, is this finally the get right game for George Kittle? Like, is this the one that we see? You look at it right now, Green Bay is giving up 14.3 points per game to the tight end, which is the third most points going to the tight end this year for fantasy. Is this the week we finally see George Kittle do something?
I think it very well could be. I think that Jair Alexander is going to be on Debo is what my anticipation is. So that leaves King against Ayuk, who is kind of still in that weird Shanahan doghouse situation. So I do think you see Kittle have a better game than he's had in the first couple weeks. So call to get right game. Sure. Kittle will find the end zone, and he will have a pretty strong performance here against the Packers.
Gotcha. Yeah, this one is, there's a lot of questions on this one for me that I'm very curious and I'm going to be looking at. And you've mentioned a lot of those, right? Like, what's that Green Bay offense do on the road? What does that look like? What do some of these San Francisco playmakers look like? And some of these guys that we were so high on coming into the season and were ranked and drafted high, are they going to finally start delivering on some of that draft capital? That's one that I'm going to be very interested to see how this thing plays out. So let's go ahead and head to our last game of the night, and that is Philadelphia and the Cowboys. Eagles going to the Cowboys. You've got Dallas favored by 4. The over-under is 51.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I like the over, and I like the Cowboys at home. This defense has been just good enough, right? They've been very opportunistic. They've been able to capitalize on some turnovers. But I do expect a shootout for most of this game. But when it comes down to it, I just don't think that Jalen Hurts is ready to win a shootout. And I think that the Cowboys are going to try and spread out the Eagles and then they're, set up the run through the pass type thing. So it might be a bit of a slow start for Zeke and Tony Pollard. But overall, as you get into the game, you'll see these running backs kind of take over and salt the game away late in the fourth.
Yep. And both of these teams have been pretty stingy against the run when it comes to giving up fantasy points. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out here. But Dallas has given up a lot of points to the wide receiver and the tight end. But a lot of that has to do with that Tampa Bay game in that first week there. That one's kind of skewing the results there a little bit. But I do like the matchup that Goddard will have there, and I think that Jalen Hurts will look to him a little bit more so this week. I believe Zach Ertz may still be out of this game, so that being the case, I think Dallas Goddard could have some big impact for you on your fantasy. And this is one of those on the other side of the ball. Are the Eagles as good as Build here as far as their ranks that they've given up to the quarter or points against the quarterbacks and points against the wide receiver as far as points that they're allowing there, where they're ranked in the top 3 for points allowed to the wide receiver. And Dallas has got a great receiving core, so we'll see how that looks to work. Amari could be out. That's going to be a decision as we head in there. So I think this one's going to be a close game, and I think it is going to be that shootout where we just see another track meet type of thing. But I think Dallas ends up pulling away and covers on that one. Any other thoughts there?
No, I think Miles Sanders is a good play, like we've mentioned a couple times here tonight. Like, he has done very well against the Cowboys his last couple games against them. Jalen Hurts is going to be able to move around. You'll see him get some traction with his legs. The Cowboys secondary, I think, is actually going to get a bit of a break, right? They're not facing Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Rob Gronkowski or Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Like, they actually get a bit of a break, so it's going to help them a little bit because they are banged up on the defensive line. And I think really outside of Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders, I'm not really looking to play anybody else. Like, Devontae Smith is enticing in really deep leagues or leagues that you have multiple flexes that you have to play. But if it's a single, if it's a standard league by, 2 receivers, 1 flex, Devonta Smith's not a guy I'm looking at this week. So it's Miles Sanders and Hurts from the Eagles and the usual cast of characters as long as they suit up and play for the Cowboys.
You're not a fan of Goddard in this matchup?
I'm not a fan of Jalen Hurts passing.
Fair enough.
Like, I think that, Goddard might have 7 catches, but if it's 7 catches for 42 yards, does that do anything for you?
Fair enough. Fair enough. You are probably correct there. All righty. Well, Kevin, I do believe that's going to take us. That does wrap up the slate of games that we've got there. Any final thoughts for the listeners?
There's a lot of game time decisions as far as the injuries go this week. So do your best to stay up on top of that. If you have any questions, obviously feel free to hit us up. We love answering questions. It was really cool to get through, one game breakdown in the first 45 minutes because we were able to, interact with the fans and everything else. So thank you all so much for allowing us to help advise on your fantasy football decisions. And as always, like, subscribe, and hit us up on the socials.
Absolutely love it. So, guys, I do believe that's going to take us down to the end of it. You can find us on the socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. Do us a big favor, head over to the YouTube channel, click that subscribe button, ring the bell. We do this show live for you 3 times a week, Tuesdays at 11 p.m. Eastern, Fridays at 11 p.m. Eastern, and Sunday mornings at 11:45 a.m. Eastern. And we're here to help answer any of your questions, try and get you guys squared away for your fantasy rosters, try and get those cashes and those trophies won for you. And Kevin, I do believe that's going to wrap it up. For Kevin, I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.